Welcome to the Industrialists, a show when we explore innovation in the industrial space, in technology, in manufacturing, mobility, and in energy. Today, I'm on a show floor of Microsoft Ignite, and I'm here with Steve Dertien, who's an EVP of Technology at PTC.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Steve, it's great to have you here. Steve, so first question for you. Tell me what it is that you're hearing from customers today on the floor at Ignite. What do they tell you? What is most important to them?
What's most important to them is how do they deliver productivity to the engineering organization at large. If you look at any product development, so the PTC primarily focuses on companies that make things, if you will. Anything from medical devices to construction equipment, agricultural equipment, you name it. And for all of them, like how do they make their business faster in the competitive time that we're in? And ultimately, how do you think about applying AI to accelerate that innovation, right? If you think about how they can free their employees up to focus on the novel things that create value for the company and try to find ways to automate out all the mundane things. And quite frankly, in engineering and manufacturing in general, just lots of human activities that can still be automated to this day. And they look at what we're doing with Forge and with Microsoft from an AI perspective and say, can we do more? How do we do it reliably? And how can we go faster?
Customers always wanted to automate things. Is there something new happening that they think of automation differently today? There was a new pace in that they are thinking about? Like, what's really new in their space?
If you think about let's maybe give a comparison. So like in accounting and finance, accounts receivable and accounts payable and doing all the invoice management is extremely repeatable and massive in volume, right? Yeah. So I would say fairly easy to automate, and there's been generations of technologies to do that. But if you take like engineering and engineering changes as an example, like every one of them might have the same nouns and verbs in terms of like doing a change, but the problem statement, what they're actually seeking out to achieve, how they're going to do it, is extremely variable, in terms of what it is. Now, the other aspect is that problem does not live within one system. It lives across many in the enterprise, right? And so it's the engineering organization, the manufacturing organizations are dealing with just a lot of the different data sources on where they even make those decisions. And so automation, unlike what is done for software or for accounting, hasn't really found a way there because a lot of what we do is a very human language oriented thing with very discrete sets of data. And that's really where generative AI and some of that technology now kind of meets us in the way that engineers speak, if you will.
So I really like this vision, but let me put you on a spot. Do you have a customer you're working with that is actually managing to handle this quality, this complexity with the new quality that AI provides and actually getting results out of it? Can you share a story like this with us?
Yeah, so why don't we just start with like what we're actually delivering in the market starting right now. So some of the AI work that we're doing isn't even generative AI to begin with, right? So if you think about engineering problems in general, how do I manage parts proliferation, which historically, we've used classification and other ways to say that these two things are similar. Or, quite frankly, in customers, they might have hundreds of the same thing. And if you think about how much money it costs to maintain that, it's sizable. So for us to be able to look at it from a 3D perspective with computer vision technology and say, hey, these parts are similar. But by the way, here's other metadata. So let's keep it simple for the audience. Like 2 bolts can be very different. They can have different specifications in terms of their strength. They could be different materials, plastics or metals, or even more advanced materials. Like, what's the trade-off analysis so that as I'm choosing to use those things, I can try to standardize more. Other things that we're doing is for example, looking at requirements. So a big thing that we've just released is the ability as you're authoring requirements. And so to put that into perspective, a modern car today might be hundreds of thousands to 1 million plus requirements. How do you read something like that? Is it readable? Is it testable? Is it measurable? Are there duplicates, conflicts? How do you deal with language differences around the world? How do you deal with importing data from your suppliers? Believe it or not, maybe up to a third of a person's work in that space is really just spent answering questions like that, that AI really can just step in and say, I got this for you. Here's what I'd recommend. But oh, by the way, Steve, not only did I understand the requirements, but when I've seen those before, these test cases, we think that these ones are the best fit. And what we're doing is saving time and selection, but still giving power to the engineers and the developers to have choice over whether or not that's applicable. And that's a critical aspect. We still think there's a a big human component in making final decisions like that.
But maybe give me an example. Can you tell me about a specific customer that is doing some of those innovative things?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of work with like BMW and Volkswagen as an example. So the requirements case that I just gave you is right at the top of the list for them. And if you think about it, you have thousands of engineers that are trying to figure out what that next car that we all want should look like. But not just like what do you and I want as features, that's super important, but like what are the details on what that goes into the software for that car, how does autonomous drive work, but also like how the regulatory requirements around the world from everywhere where they sell it. And so we're working with them, and they're great partners of Microsoft as well, to essentially make that vision reality, both at the automotive OEM level, as well as down in the supply chain with the people that are actually supplying components to them to fulfill that vision.
Given that AI is in such a moment of time when it's changing on us almost daily, should I wait to make those changes? Should I wait to engage and give it another 6 months, or should I do it today?
No, I think you want to get started sooner for two reasons. Your competitors are, right? So there's always that threat. Now, you might say, hey, I want to lead from the middle, and maybe that's okay if you're more conservative, but I would say there's really no reason to. The technology is actually really, really good as we have it right now to get started in driving real value for the users, right? So I think there's this juxtaposition of like, just how much data do I need to get productive value? But at the same time, with a lot of the transformation that many of the customers that I speak to are going through, it may allow them at this very moment to really reimagine what their process might need to be in the world of AI. So if you're making that investment to transform already, why are you not thinking about how to take advantage of AI to maybe even transform further than you were originally thinking about in the first place?
One thing that I hear from customers is that there's a level of fear. Like, do I have the skills? Can I do what you just said you are doing? So give us a little bit of insight into it. Like, what level of skills and how many data PhDs do I need to hire into my manufacturing company to be able to work with this system?
It turns out like in the prior generation AI, we were always talking about data scientists. Yeah. I haven't had a conversation about data scientists in a while. So our own engineering team is saying, hey, what problem do we need to solve? And so it's actually boiled it down to something that's very approachable. And now saying, what data do I need? So the software development team at PTC actually isn't spending a lot of time on like, what's the best LLM, for that particular thing? Yes, it's a question that we answer, but it's more of a, where do we get the data? How do we organize that data? How do we store it in a way that AI can make sense of it? And so more of our problems are far more tractable that way. Now, that's maybe us internally. To a customer that uses our technology, we want that to be even simpler, right? So when they get in, they don't even actually know that there's AI. There's not a conversation about AI in terms of setting it up or expressing that problem to them. Yeah. They're just able to start using it and getting value. And then if the IT organization at large has an agent strategy, for example, how do we tell them that plugs into their ecosystem? And I think that one is the developing side, where customers are developing the skills, courtesy of Microsoft and others, to say, this is what our ecosystem needs to look like. This is what's going to drive our vendor selection. And that's kind of new frontier on that front.
Steve, is there a question that I didn't ask you, but you think I'm missing and it's critical to this conversation?
Yeah, I think I obviously work in a world where a lot of the choices in the data is even more regulated, right? So think like aerospace and defense. We didn't really talk about them, but it's a sizable part of our business. And I just left a conference where, hey, security at the behest of AI, like how do we deal with that? So like when you think of how Microsoft and PTC both think about the intellectual property that goes into that data, how the access permissions work, how we're dealing with like real caring consideration. I commonly get asked, on one end, what's the trustworthiness in the response, trustworthiness in the security? You're not taking my data, right? And so I'm kind of projecting here, like that's a big part of the conversations I have every day is, how do we do that with confidence to realize like my data is not going to be used to bootstrap my competitor to outcompete me. And I have, I'm just projecting that on our end, we have a big strategy around making sure that is not the case. But, maybe in Microsoft's defense here, we partner with Microsoft because there's a lot of assurance on that frontier as well.
Steve, thank you so much. Thank you for being part of the conversation and being on the Industrialist. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.